الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وخليله صلى الله عليه وسلم ثم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, what we're going to do, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to continue our Yusuf series, life lessons from the story of Yusuf bi'idhnillah. For those who are joining us via Zoom, can you see our screen? So you have Yusuf adolescence years, inshallah.
Yeah.
One of the things that we want to, before we get started, one of the preliminaries I want to mention, I want to talk about very quickly the importance of seeking knowledge. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man salaka tariqan yaltamisu fihi ilman sahhallahu bihi tariqan ila jannah." That whoever treads a path seeking the knowledge, Allah Azza wa Jalla make the path to paradise easy for him. And the reason why I want to mention that is because how easy of a trade that is. The only thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to do in our deen is just to be sincere. And also to learn the religion of Allah. Irrespective of a person's sins and transgressions that they may do, he or she may do throughout their life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has only asked the people to be sincere and to seek knowledge. And as the scholars of hadith, they mention the part of the hadith where it says, "Sahallahu bihi tariqan ila jannah," that Allah will make the path to paradise easy for this individual, referring to the salat on Yawm al-Qiyamah, referring to that path, that bridge that is over the hellfire, that every last one of us will have to cross. But one of the ways to be successful is to seek knowledge. One of the things that it does by seeking knowledge of the religion of Allah is that it enables an individual, it enables us to be able to defend our religion, to explain it. One of the main reasons why we're studying the life of Yusuf alayhi salam is that sometimes, and I want to be very careful with my wording here, but sometimes when you study different things from the deen, it can become very dry. It can seem very dry. So you want to take tangible examples from the lives of the prophets. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي يُوسُفَ وَإِخْوَتِهِ آيَاتٌ لِلسَّائِلِينَ, that inside Yusuf, and not only Yusuf, but also inside his brothers as well, who were jealous of him, who wanted to kill him, that you can take lessons from both of them. So having said that, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to try to take lessons from both sides. Now, when we talk about the adolescence of Yusuf, of his young years, his teenage years, his young adult years, the first point, and what we're going to do, inshallah ta'ala, there's going to be about 10 or 11 points. So for the sake of your notes, inshallah, what you're going to do is going to write 10 or 11, if you will, 11 points that we're going to get from Yusuf, his adolescence, his years. The first one that we actually want to talk about, and sometimes this is very taboo depending upon what community you're from. It's a taboo topic, no one wants to talk about it, but this is also a reality. The first thing we're going to talk about here, as you can see on your screen, inshallah, is temptation of the opposite sex and fighting carnal desires. Alright, and the reason why this is important, this is very important, especially dealing with the youth. This is a reality that we all should address, dealing with our young teenagers, those who are parents, all right, young adults around the age from 18 and 20 going to college. These things should not be taboo topics that we should avoid talking to our children about. Rather, we need to address them head on. All right, we need to address them head on. The reason being, again, we're taking the life lessons from the story of Yusuf, and we're focused on the temptation of the opposite sex. And for those who read the story of Yusuf, they know what I'm referring to. The situation with Imrat al-Aziz, the wife of Aziz, who is known as Zulayqa. She tried to seduce Yusuf. For those who are just joining via Facebook or Instagram, the homework assignment was just to read the chapter of Yusuf alayhi salam, and we're going to extract benefits from it. Nevertheless, the temptation that Zulayqa, she wanted to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam. And we all know what I'm referring to. But now, we have to be cognizant of the temptation of the opposite sex, especially as young adults, going to high school, going to college, post-college, and what have you. Those who are working in the work office, all these things we have to be cognizant of in dealing with the fitna of the people. The reason being, and we also, Another point from this is that we should not chastise our children, or we should not, for expressing certain sentiments that they feel. I feel this way. I'm thinking about marriage. Maybe she's 19 or 20. And yes, we can encourage them, listen, go to school, do this or do this, do this. But we shouldn't just push them away as if they have said something bad. The reason being is because the Prophet ﷺ, he said something, or something occurred to the Prophet ﷺ, and I want every last one of us to focus on this. On one occasion, this hadith, a young boy came to the Prophet ﷺ, and this hadith is gathered in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah. And what happened here was that a young boy came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, i'dhan li bizina, allow me to commit adultery. SubhanAllah. Imagine the goal, it's temerity the boy had to have, to express himself to the Prophet in front of all of these people. O Messenger of Allah, allow me to commit adultery. And this is the statement of this young boy. But notice here something that happens. The point of benefit comes within the rest of the hadith. What happens here is that فَزَجْرُهُ النَّاسِ, the people started to chastise the boy. How can he come out and say something like this? And as even mentioned, فَقَالُوا مَهْ. They were amazed at how can he even just fix his lips to say something like this to the Prophet ﷺ. But the Prophet ﷺ, he did something special that I want all of us to take benefit from. The Prophet ﷺ, فَقَالَ إِذْنِي, bring the boy close. فَدَنَا مِنْهُمْ قَرِيبًا, and the boy, he became close to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ did not chastise the boy for what he said. Because obviously, and as SubhanAllah, the scholars of hadith mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ understood the desires of this young teenager. However, obviously he's going about it wrong. But the point is here is that when our children, or when our young adults, if you're the imam of our community, or if you're a teacher in the community, or if you're a counselor, when we have these young people, when they express their desires, what they may be going through, it may be in a halal way, or it may be haram way. Some of our children, this is just a reality, they are maybe desiring things that are totally opposition to the religion without going into detail. But the point is, should we just jump down their throats and say, no, fear Allah, do this? And everything has its proper place. Sometimes we even shun our children for feeling a certain way. Some people have even went to the extent, subhanAllah, they may remove the child from the household without even giving advice because of just the mere fact of feeling a certain way. But notice the Prophet ﷺ, he took a different route. The Prophet ﷺ did not get on the boy, subhanAllah, how could you do this? Be quiet. How could you say that? I'm the Messenger of Allah. The Prophet ﷺ, what did he do? For those of us who know the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, there's 2 points of benefit that I want you to get from this part of the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he asked the boy, أَتَحِبَّهُ لِأُمَّكِ, would you like someone to commit adultery with your mother? قَالَ لَا وَاللَّهِ, the boy said no. Then the Prophet asked him, would you like someone to do this with your sister? Would you like someone to do this with your aunt? Would you like someone to do this with so-and-so and so-and-so, or the women folk of your family? The boy, he mentioned, no, O Messenger of Allah, I would not like that for any of the women in my family. But notice here, the Prophet ﷺ, he made dua for this young man. And it's mentioned afterwards, this young man was not known to, not to say he didn't have the desires, but he didn't act on it in an obscene way. But there's 2 points of benefits we need to get from this hadith, and this also comes from the life lesson of Yusuf alayhi salam. The temptation of the opposite sex, it is there. It is natural, especially for young women and young men, when they're going through certain ages, they're going to have different desires. And as parents, we also need to understand this because we also dealt with this before. Having said that, again, we should not just use this as this is taboo. We don't speak about that in this home. No, we need to address this issue with our children or with our young sons or our young daughters. Listen, I know you're going to be going to college. You're going to be seeing a lot of different things. People are going to say certain things to you. All right, but you need to be aware, and this is how you need to address it. Know that I'm here to speak about, to aid you and assist you. But there's 2 points from this hadith that I want everyone to get. One, the mannerisms of the Prophet ﷺ. He did not chastise the boy for feeling a certain way. Even if let's say, and I'm going to take a step further, subhanAllah, even if the boy had some desires that were totally in opposition, totally against the nature of a man for the opposite sex, especially in today's time dealing with all these particular things. What is the manner and what is the approach that we should have? Yes, we need to clarify right and wrong, but also we need to have a particular mannerism amongst ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned, لو كنت فظا غليظ القلب لانفضوا من حولك. If you dealt with the people harshly, they will run away from you. So obviously there is a certain mannerism that we need to have as teachers and how we deal with these particular issues. That is the first point of benefit. Now also here, the mere fact or the mere desire that a person has within themselves does not make something haram. We need to understand that. Alright? And there's also, if there's any questions via Instagram or Zoom or Facebook, you can type them, I can see them. But the sin does not fall on the mere temptation itself. The sin falls on acting upon it. This is because also, فَأَمَّنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ فَإِنَّ جَنَّتَهِ هِيَ الْمَأْوَىٰ. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Nazi'at, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, and as for the one who fears the standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ, and this person restrains their soul from acting off the evil desires that they desire inwardly, their carnal desires that they feel inside. If they don't act upon that, فَإِنَّ جَنَّتَهِ الْمَأْوَىٰ, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give this individual Jannah. Having said that, again, once again, we have to be cognizant of the fact that the sin does not go upon the mere fact of a person desiring something. And as teachers and as parents, we also need to understand that. And again, we're not saying that we're going to say or condone all wrong or all temptations that our young folk that they feel. No, I'm not saying that. But at the very least, what we need to do, inshallah ta'ala, is understand that yes, they are dealing with something that perhaps we didn't deal with when we were younger. Notice also the advice that I gave you before from Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah. And Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he was reported to have said, لا تجبروا أولادكم على أثاركم فإنهم مخلوق لزمن غير زمانكم. Subhanallah. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he said, do not force your children to follow in your footsteps in everything that you did, because the reality is they were created for a time that's different from the one that you grew up in. The fitna that they're going to be exposed to is totally different from the fitna that you were exposed to when you were younger. Having said that, again, the approach has to be different. How do we speak and how do we deal with our children? It also has to be different. The second point of benefit, I said that there were two benefits in regard to that one hadith. The second benefit is that, subhanallah, sometimes that you need to also put yourself in the shoe of the victim. Subhanallah. So again, sometimes you need to put yourself in the shoe of the victim to get you to truly understand the evil of what's going on. Subhanallah. Even in political issues today, even in anything, sometimes for you to truly understand and become truly sympathetic and become truly empathetic of what's occurring to a certain people, you need to put yourself in the shoe of the victim. This is why the Prophet ﷺ told the young boy, and he said, would you like for someone to do that to your mother? He placed him in the shoe of the victim, because now the boy will understand, subhanAllah, the evil of what I'm asking to do. You know, I want to do this to someone else, however, I do not want anyone to do this to me. So having said that, again, subhanAllah, this is why he addressed the situation the way it is. Okay? For those, I do apologize. My son he's playing in the background, so he's screaming. I do apologize for that. But nevertheless, this was the point of benefit in regards to the temptation of the opposite sex and for a person fighting their desires. Another point that I want to mention too, in regards to that, Allah Azza wa Jalla knows His creation. And I want you to reflect on something. For those who have a Quran, and we mentioned one of the conditions or prerequisite for our class is that you also have to read Surah Yusuf and constantly bring a Quran with you to class. I want to refer you to the verse of Surah An-Nur, chapter 24, verse 30, inshallah. Now, why am I even referring you back to this verse? Here, notice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions كُلِّ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغْضُوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ ويحفظوا فروجهم ويحفظوا فروجهم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions, and say to the believer, the believing men, for them to lower their gaze. And then shortly after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions in verse 31, so again 24:30, and then on 31, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, and say to the believing women, for them to lower their gaze. Now subhanAllah, why would Allah Azza wa Jalla, why would He address the men first? The scholars of tafsir and the scholars of tafsir and the scholars of hadith, they mention something that's very interesting. And the thing that they mention, they say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed the men first is because out of the two, men will have more trouble lowering their gaze than women would, subhanAllah. And if you notice, if you look at the other verses in the Quran, Allah does this, He does this a lot of times. For an example, case in point, when we talk about stealing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions السارق والسارقة فاقطع أيديهما. Allah mentions, and the male who steals and the woman who steals, then we know the penalty for it, and their hand is chopped off only in an Islamic land. But why would Allah Azza wa Jalla, why would He put the men first and then He put the woman afterwards? The scholars of tafsir, from them Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he says because out of the two sexes, when it comes to provision, it is more likely that a man will steal first before a woman would. Having said that, this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put him first in this regard. So when it comes to the temptation, not saying that neither party will fall guilty, but when it comes to temptation, more times than none, that a man will have more trouble struggling with his desires than a woman would. And again, we're not saying that in every case, we're using it generically, inshallah. So therefore, again, we have to understand the temptation of the opposite sex, as the Prophet ﷺ has also mentioned in a narration, that I not leave any fitna more harmful upon the men than the women. Alright? And again, it doesn't mean that every woman is going to be a fitna and so on and so forth. Again, just generally speaking. But again, the whole point number one, the life lesson that we get from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, it is upon every last one of us, parents, and if you are a counselor in high school or in college or what have you, for us all to be cognizant, of the reality of what we're dealing with when it comes to the opposite sex and our young youth as well. Another point that we're going to mention, inshallah, is, for those who are following via Zoom, point number 2 is eliminate sin by avoiding the opportunity. SubhanAllah. One of the major ways in our religion is that we eliminate sin by avoiding the opportunity. And sometimes what happens, or we'll take a step back. I want to give you a principle for those who are taking notes, inshallah. For those who are taking notes, okay, I didn't lose anybody, I'm sorry. For those who are taking notes, something that is haram in our deen, it becomes haram one of two ways. So if you're taking notes, all right, something becomes haram in Islam one of two ways. Again, something becomes haram in Islam one of two ways. For those who are taking notes, write that down. I do apologize. I want to make sure that the battery does not die, so I have to get a charger. 1 second. Yes. Now, I'm back. For something becomes haram in Islam, I do apologize. But something become haram in Islam becomes haram one of two ways. The first way is a haram lidatihi. Alright? That the substance is haram in and of itself. So therefore, Allah is jal haramahu. Again, something becomes haram in Islam one of two ways, is that either haram lidatihi, that the substance itself, ما كان مفسدته متعلق بذات الفعل, that the corruption is connected to the action in and of itself. So for an example, drinking khamar, alcohol is what? Is haram. For example, drinking khamar, eating pork, these particular things, they did not become haram because of something else. It became haram because of the substance in and of itself. So therefore, we're going to talk about the life lesson that we get from Surah Yusuf is we eliminate sin by avoiding the opportunity. Here we know that Yusuf alayhi salam had the opportunity. Obviously, the situation was set for him to commit this particular sin with Zurayqa wa'iyadu billah. However, he did not do so. So therefore, we have also something in our deen that is called Sadr Dari'ah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes something haram. He cuts it off before it even gets to that particular action. Notice also we have other ayats where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions, do not even come close to zina. Not commit zina, but don't even come close to it. So anything that leads to that particular action also becomes haram as well. For those who ask, what is the hikmah? What is the hikmah, for example, in our deen, where it's not permissible for a man to shake the hand of a non-Muslim woman, or not non-Muslim, a female, a woman that is not his immediate family. For example, not his mother, it's not his sister, it's not his wife, it's not his daughters. Why? Because what happens after that? And again, somebody said, well, that may be extreme. Well, we're not saying that in every case. However, for example, if a person hugs and from the opposite sex, maybe you don't have an evil intention, but maybe I do. So that a hug made in my mind may turn into something else, and so on and so forth. So therefore, again, in our deen, that which also may lead to the haram also becomes haram as well. Alright? So again, we said that something in Islam becomes haram of one of two ways. Either haram lidatihi, that it is haram because of the substance in and of itself, or it becomes haram, which is known as haram li ghayrihi, that it becomes haram due to something else. Or for an example, the best definition of that will be that the action itself, and again this is part 2, that the action itself is permissible. However, what the person intends to do with it, it is haram, fasada harama. Alright, so then again, what the person intends to do with this particular thing now has made that ruling haram. Again, so now what happens is, the reason why it's important for us to understand this is because what happens also is that some people may say, well, akhi, house is haram, sister, house is haram, there's no hadith, there's no ayah in the Quran, but we understand these principles, then now we will understand. So for example, let's say I buy, or not even buy, walking. I just use something in general. Just walking. We know walking is permissible. Walking in Islam is permissible. There's nothing haram or as mubah. You don't get rewarded for walking. You don't get a sin for walking. It is mubah. It is permissible. But now, if I am walking with intention to go do something haram, maybe to go see someone I should not see, and do things I'm not supposed to be doing, then that meshi, that walking, that action of walking, even though it is permissible in its essence, has now become what? It has become haram. So therefore, the principle that we get from the likes of Yusuf alayhi salam, principle number 2 is that we eliminate sin by avoiding the opportunity. Not only do we not commit the sin itself, but everything that may lead to that particular sin has also taken the same ruling. So therefore, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to avoid it, bidnillah. Now go back to the walking example. Just as if walking again is permissible, but if a person is walking to the masjid, now we understand the other ahadith, that for every step that this person takes, there's what? There's a benefit. Or there's a reward. Allah forgives a sin. Allah raises his level. The person is just walking. How is this possible? Now again, because it's not the action in of itself, is what the person intends to do with this particular thing. And likewise, sins work the same way. For an example, if a person buys a particular computer, or he buys a phone, an extra phone, but the person intends to do haram with this phone, to watch things he or she is not supposed to be watching, to do things with this particular, I'm not saying that it may occur, but if they do it with the sole action, I'm going to use this to download all this other stuff. I ran out of space, I need extra gigabytes to do this. That mere purchase has now also become what? It has become haram. SubhanAllah. Having said that, this also is important for us to understand that the life lesson that we got from Yusuf alayhi salam is the importance of eliminating sin, not by acting on it. It's not by desiring. You're a human being, you're not a robot. But we eliminate sin by avoiding the opportunity. Meaning everything else that leads to that particular thing has also taken the same ruling, and we wish to stay away from it bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. That is point number 2 that we got from the life lesson of Yusuf alayhi salam. Excuse me. Point number 3 that we're going to go over is the importance of sincerity. The importance of sincerity. The scholars of Islam have mentioned that if a person is truly sincere with Allah Jalla wa'ala, then they have 2 promises from Allah. Again, if the person is sincere with Allah, they have 2 promises from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first one is that the person will be safe from shaitan, generally speaking. Again, it does not mean that the shaitan will not trick the person to get them to commit sin, because the person is going to commit sin. You're a human being. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Kullu bani Adam khata, wa khayru khata'ina tawabun." That all of the children of Adam, they are habitual upon sin, but the best of those who follow up the sin with true repentance, these are those who are the best of the people. So what does it mean when I say the importance of sincerity? Allah has given the individual 2 promises. One, if you refer back to the conversation between Allah and shaitan, when Allah asked shaitan, and what prevents you from prostrating? One of the things that shaitan, he said, after saying that you created from clay, fire, you created from clay, and so on and so forth, and he mentioned, because bima aghwaytani, because you have kicked me out, I'm going to do this, that, and the third. But one of the things that shaitan, he said, I'm going to misguide them, I'm going to lay in front of them, behind them, beside them, and so on and so forth. Except إِلَّا عِبَادِكَ مِنْهُمْ الْمُخْلَصِينَ, except for your sincere ones, I can't do anything with them. So having said that, again, the scholars of Islam mentioned, for someone who is truly sincere, they have the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He will protect them from shaitan. Some of the scholars have mentioned, meaning leaving the religion of Allah, wallahu a'lam, and following to the traps of shaitan. It's not necessarily referring to sin, but we're going to speak about that in a minute. The second promise that a person has from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he or she is sincere, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Bayyinah, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ مُخْلَصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. And they have only been asked, they have only been requested to be sincere with Allah Jalla wa'ala. But again, if a person is sincere, they have 2 promises. One, that the promise that Allah will protect them from shaitan, and also the second one, that Allah will aid them from leaving off sin. Now, where did I get this from? We got it from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. We noticed that Yusuf alayhi salam, he said what? Yusuf, when the whole situation occurred between him and Zulayqa, Imra'at al-Aziz, one of the things that he said was, Ma'ad Allah, may Allah forbid, Innahu Rabbi, indeed your husband is my caretaker, he's my Lord, in the title of the sense of the word. Now what happens here is that also Yusuf said something, or Allah says something about Yusuf. He says, indeed he was from our sincere servants. The scholars of tafsir from the Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he said that because of Yusuf's sincerity, also Allah aided him from staying away from this particular sin. Having said that, again, we also take the same benefit. Maybe a person has a particular vice they're struggling with. It might be smoking, for an example. In dhunub yatafawat. Sins differ, it varies from person to person. So my sins that I struggle with may be easy for you to stay away from, and your sins that you struggle with are easy for me to stay away from. But nevertheless, we all commit sins. But my point is is that, let's say a person's vice they struggle with is smoking. If a person knows that it's haram and they don't make excuses for it, they, khalas, akhi, I'm struggling with this, may Allah aid me. But they're not making jest of the religion. The person is being sincere with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The scholars of Islam, they mentioned it may not be the first time. It may not be the second time. It might not be the 5th or the 10th or the 15th time. But eventually, if the person is truly sincere and he or she wants to stay away from this sin, Allah says, Allah will aid the individual. So when they go to lift the cigarette the 21st time, eventually that sincerity will kick in. And the person will say, SubhanAllah, I'm not supposed to be doing this. And they will get rid of it. So again, the third benefit that we get from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam is the importance of sincerity. And if a person is sincere with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will aid him with two things. And we said that He will protect him from shaitan, and also He will aid him or her in constantly falling into sin, and falling into a particular sin. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aid is salt. Now, so that's also in regards to the third point. The fourth point that we want to mention, the fourth benefit that we got from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam is, the fourth point that we got from Yusuf alayhi salam is that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can save you from your desires. Only Allah Jalla wa Ala can save you from your desires. Here, notice that it was not, sometimes we feel that if I do such and such and such and such, and I take these precautionary measures, then I'm going to be fine. But notice that it is only tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that will enable a person to stay away from the desires. If you look at the scholars of Syria also mentioned, if you look at Zulayqa, she was very wealthy. She also was married. She can have anything that she wanted. However, this did not keep her from committing sin. Some people, we like to believe that if I have such and such and such and such, I will not commit such and such sin. If I had wealth, I would not desire these particular things. If I was married to this individual, I would not do this, that, and the third. If I had this, low. If I had. But it wasn't, she had all the possessions in the world, but it did not stop her from wanting to commit this particular evil. Having said that, the scholars of Islam, they say that it is only a tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is only success from Allah that truly keeps an individual from committing certain haram acts. It is not, and this is also why it's imperative as Muslims that we call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly. And unfortunately, sometimes we go through the motions. We treat Islam like a ritual. We get up, alhamdulillah, it's good. We get up and we pray. But we go through the motions. Allah Akbar. Sami Allahu liman hamidah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum. And a person is getting nothing but just a workout. Abdominal workout. They're not truly spending time and reflecting and spending time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentions in the Quran, إِذَا سَأَلَكَ عَنِّي عِبَادِي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned, and when my servant asks you about me, inform them that I am close. And I answer the one who calls on me. Going back to the importance of sincerity, as well as only Allah can save you from your desires. The Prophet ﷺ was reported to have said, "Man yasduqu ma'Allah, Allah yasduqu ma'ah." Whoever is truthful with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah Azza wa Jalla will be truthful with him or her. But a person has to be truly sincere with Allah. A person can't lie to Allah and play these games with their lords. They have to be true. They have to be genuine with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And know for sure that it's only Allah. Only Allah. It's not this 12-step program. It's not this, that, and third. Yes, we also need to take measures in doing so. But at the end of the day, a person cannot lose sight of, I need to call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who created me. The one who created my desires. The one who created my thoughts. The one who created the sins that I commit. The only one that can truly aid me is the one who created me to begin with. So having said that, it behooves every last one of us, myself and you as well, is that we need to constantly call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Take advantage of the salah. When you are in salah, pour your heart out to Allah. Oh Allah, you know what sin I'm struggling with. You know this particular thing. You know things that my family, my wife, or my husband doesn't even know about me, and I need you to aid me with this because I don't want to deal with this on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Be sincere with Allah. If we can't be sincere with the one who created our hearts to begin with, something is wrong. Something is wrong. But nevertheless, that is the fourth benefit that we get from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, is that only Allah Azza wa Jal can save you from your desires. The next point here, and point number 5, the benefit number 5 that we get from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam is never compromise your moral standards. Yes, there is a hadith, and unfortunately, a lot of people who have a tendency to be introverts, or they're shy. A lot of us, we fall victim to that. And what am I talking about is that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, that shyness is a portion of faith. Shyness, and for those who are taking notes, I want you to write this down. Shyness is a portion of faith. However, in Islam, there are 2 forms of shyness. And it's known that the Anbiya in general, the prophets in general, they have shyness about them. They have humility about them, humbleness about them, tawadu', and so on and so forth. However, in Islam, a lot of us are not aware that there are 2 forms of shyness. You have a shyness that is praiseworthy, and that's understood by everyone. But then you have also that which is madhmoom. You also have that which is dispraiseworthy. You also have that which is praising. And what do I mean by this? And unfortunately, if you have this level of shyness, then this can also cause a person to compromise their moral standards. We know here that Yusuf alayhi salam, even though it is from the characteristics of the prophets, of the Anbiya, for them to be shy. But we also understand that Yusuf alayhi salam, when it came time, or when the opportunity came to commit sin, that shyness did not take over. Rather, the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took over. And this is very important for us as youth, for the youth to understand, those who are in high school, middle school, and college, that yes, it is good to be shy, but also we cannot allow our shyness to get us in trouble. We need to speak up. So what happens here, that when Yusuf was being introduced, what is the first thing that he said? Ma'adallah, may Allah forbid, and let us stay away from it. So the point of benefit that we get from Yusuf alayhi salam is that never compromise your moral standards. I'll give you a tangible example. Perhaps someone, inshallah, maybe they have a job that they work, and they're looking to get promoted. So the boss calls them to a gathering, a party, a function, a job, whatever it is, a job fair, and the person may be sitting with their boss. And this has happened countless times, where he's maybe sitting with their supervisor, their boss, and they may be drinking, and he passes him or her, passes them the beer. Then the person says, they start thinking, try to rationalize, and this is what Shaitan does. As Allah mentioned, he makes evil deeds seem fair seeming. You know you have to take care of your family. You know you have to do this particular thing. No one is looking, there's no Muslims around. Just go ahead and drink it, and then it's over with. You will become cool. Your supervisor knows that he can rely on you, she can rely on you. You're one of us, and so on and so forth. So therefore now a person starts to compromise their moral standards to get a worldly benefit. But we get this benefit from Yusuf alayhi salam. Never let any situation or anyone make you compromise your moral standards. That what you should be doing and fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Without going into too much detail, will also suffice with that particular point. We're trying to speed up for the sake of time, and then at the end, if you have questions, please, we'll address it then, inshallah. The next point of benefit, inshallah, that we get is point number 6, is, as some of the scholars mentioned, authentic people are faithful. Alright? Authentic people are faithful. What do we mean when we say this? Is that notice, subhanallah, when Yusuf alayhi salam, when, and for those who know, the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. And for those who don't know, and even for those who know, there's one part of the story that we constantly read that we skip over, that we don't understand the benefit of. When Zulayka, when Imra'at al-Aziz, when she wanted to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam, Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions that she took him to a particular area. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. And for those who understand the Arabic language, how do you say door in Arabic? You say bab. And how do you say doors? You say abwab. To show that there is more than one or more than three or what have you. The scholars in Tafsir, subhanAllah, they say that the Imra'at al-Aziz and her husband, they were so wealthy that they had a particular hallway that only leads to this bedroom. So basically, for an example, just like you may have in today's society, very wealthy people, that this road only leads to this particular house. They were so wealthy that within their house, that this hallway only doesn't lead to anywhere else, it leads to a bedroom, their personal bedroom. They lead to anything else. So when they was walking, when she was taking Yusuf, behind him, غَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, she will close the doors behind him. And Allah knows how many doors those were. Some of the scholars have said, they mentioned that it was more than 5 or what have you, but she closed these amount of doors behind him. The reason why we're giving you the background story to this is because the opportunity was there. She could have done anything. Yusuf could have done anything. And no one would have known about it. I need you to understand this. That there was no one. For an example, I'll give you an example, and it's going to be a bad example, so I'm not going to use anybody's name. Let's say, for an example, let's say a woman came home and she found another woman in her house. Not even in the bedroom, just in the house. And her husband was there. Maybe they were in the kitchen somewhere. The reason why I'm trying to give this scenario is because what happens here, maybe a person can say, well, she came to, she's an electrician, she came to fix this, she came to do this, she came to do this. And maybe a person can talk themselves out of that. And vice versa, switch the roles, the same thing. A man came home, a man was there standing in the kitchen, but his wife was there. He came, we have insurance, American Home Shield, he came to fix this, so on and so forth. And a person can get themselves out of it. But subhanAllah, when you think about what Allah said, that she took Yusuf to an area where there was no excuse. This road, this hallway only leads to one area. It leads to what? It leads to the bedroom. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, and she closed all the doors behind him. So now, what would happen if the husband came and he was to unlock all these doors? There was no excuse. There's no other part of the house that's in this area. So now that we understand this, now we understand the opportunity was there for Yusuf to do whatever he wanted, and no one would have known about it illallah except for Allah. And also, Imra'at al-Aziz. But Yusuf alayhi salam, he does something that is important, that the life benefit that we get from this is that those who are truly sincere, those who really cherish that what you have done for them, they are constantly faithful, and they do not use an opportunity, they do not use a situation to justify the means. To say that, well, if you were in my shoes, you would have done such and such and such and such. Or you would have done this. Or if I was in your shoes, I truly understand why you committed that sin. Look how handsome this man was. Look how beautiful this woman was. And so on and so forth. Things that we will use today to justify our sins. The first thing that Yusuf immediately did was say, Ma'adallah. The reason why I gave you the background history to the amount of doors in that particular situation is for my next point that I want to mention. And it's upon everyone. If you didn't get anything else that I got from this lecture, I want you to focus. I want you to focus on this particular point, inshallah. The next point, for those who are following via Zoom, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide a way out, provided you take action. Alright? Provided you take action, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always provide you with a way out. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, and for those who truly fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who are cognizant of Allah, They love Allah Azza wa Jal. For those who have all of these descriptions about them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will always give them a way out. And Allah Azza wa Jal will provide them for ways they can't even imagine. But where's the connection between this point and also where is the benefit from this point and also the point of Yusuf alayhi salam? The point of benefit from the other stories, from the story of Yusuf, that Allah will provide a way out. Notice here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, and then we showed Yusuf the Burhan. Also, before we do that, Allah mentions that Zuleika, obviously, she was enticed towards Yusuf. وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا رَأَى بُرْحَانَ رَبِّي. And that Yusuf would have been entitled and inclined had he not seen the Burhan, the proof of his Lord. And we'll talk about that later on, what did Yusuf actually see. But nevertheless, Allah went from, subhanallah, I need everyone to understand this, Allah went from using the word abwab to now using the word wastabaqa bab. They went from the word from using doors, Allah went from the word from using doors to using the word door. The scholars of tafsir, subhanallah, they say because Yusuf, at this point, obviously Yusuf knew what was going on. When he said, may Allah forbid, your husband is my Lord, innahu Rabbi in a sense of the word, not the one who is worshipped, not Ma'bud, not the one who is worshipped, but back then they referred to the leaders as Rabb and so on and so forth. Nevertheless, here is mentioned that Yusuf alayhi salam just ran. And sometimes in our daily life, to get a tangible example, sometimes I don't know how I'm going to work this out. I don't know how I'm going to be able to pay this or my family or this, whatever, my light bill or this, that, whatever the case may be. But a person may just have to put their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I know it's going to work. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I know it's going to work out. All I need to do is continue to worship Allah Azza wa Jal, and I need to take action. So having said this, remember she locked all the doors. غَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. Not one door, not two. As some of the scholars mentioned, it was أَكْثَرُ مِنْ خَمْسَةٍ. وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ, it was more than 5. But having said that, if that is the case, لو كان أمر كذلك, if that is the case, what is the benefit in running towards a door that is locked? The scholars of Islam, they mention, as Allah said in the Quran, مَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whoever fears Allah, He will give them a way out. The scholars of Tafsir, they mention when Yusuf alayhi salam, when he just ran, that the doors immediately opened. SubhanAllah. That all the doors became unlocked. And Yusuf was able to leave. This is why when Yusuf ran, Zulayqa Imra'at Aziz, she followed Yusuf. She chased after him. But the last door would remain locked. Why? What is the hikmah behind that? Because it gave her time to catch up to Yusuf, and obviously Allah knows what we do not know. Sometimes when it feels that the situation is dayiq, when we feel stressed, we feel that the situation is narrow, we feel our finances or whatever it is not going to be there, it behooves, it's imperative that the person put their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because what Allah knows and we don't know. Allah knows the result. So can you imagine the feeling of Yusuf when he got to the last door? How he felt? So how all these other doors, they open, but why isn't this last door open? And Allah gave us the hikmah why. So it was enough time for Imra'at Aziz to catch up to Yusuf, to rip his shirt from behind. Once the shirt ripped, the door was open. And Allah has mentioned, they found what? Sayyidaha. They found her husband at the door. Now, what would happen had all the doors open, had this door open like the previous door before the husband got there? The shirt would have never been ripped. Wallahu a'lam, shirt would have never been ripped. And also, all the husband would see from a distance is what? Yusuf running out from this particular room when it was known that this hallway only leads to what? This particular area. Now that we understand the background history of it, we can appreciate this particular situation. but also the benefit that we get from it. SubhanAllah, the benefit that we extract from it is that sometimes when situations for us don't make sense, oh Allah, why am I doing this? Oh Allah, why did you test me with cancer? Oh Allah, why am I going through this? Oh Allah, why did this happen? Why did my family? Why did I lose my father? Why? Sometimes we just have to trust the process. Put our hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and just act and just move. And know for sure that it's going to work out. If we really believe what we believe, why did you test me? Why did you cause my son to pass away? Why did you call this? Why? If we truly understand and we believe what we believe, I'm not saying it's not going to hurt. You're a human being, it's going to hurt. We're going to go through emotion. As the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, that the tears they cry, that the eyes they cry, because they feel pain and they hurt. However, at the end of the day, we have to trust in the ultimate goal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Yusuf alayhi salam, again, all the doors was locked. He just ran towards the door. I don't have a key for this door. I don't know how to open it, but I'm just gonna what? I'm just going to take action. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused the doors to open, and you know the rest of the story now. But the point of benefit that we got from this is that Allah Azza wa Jal will always provide a way out. It is a promise from Allah. Yes, you may go through some hardship. That hardship may last for weeks, for days, for months, for years. And it may differ upon the faith of the person. Perhaps the person is being punished. Wallahu a'lam. But the point is, Allah and Allah la yukhlu wa'dah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not break his promise. And it was a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he will always provide a way out. But the caveat is that you have to take action. That is the benefit that we got from that. The next benefit that we get from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam is that real power is being able to do something and still say no. Real power, all right, just as the Prophet is mentioned in another narration, true strength is not that you're able to overpower another individual when you're wrestling or when you're fighting. However, true power, true strength is controlling yourself in a fit of anger. This is true strength. So the benefit that we get from Yusuf alayhi salam is that real power is being able to do something, be able to act upon your inner desires, your anger, whatever it is, but still saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Notice again that the situation, the table, for lack of better terms, was set for Yusuf alayhi salam to commit this particular evil. And there's no one that will know about it. Not only will not anybody know about a particular area, and the only one that will know is Allah Jalla wa Ala. However, Yusuf remained faithful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he also remained faithful to the one who took care of him, Aziz. Having said that, true power is being able to do something, but also saying no. And this is a great point, especially for the youth, when you're in high school, when you're in college, when your parents are not around, when no one knows, when you're in your dorm room, if you're staying in a dorm room, or when you tell your parents that you have an extra class and you don't have an extra class. True power is being able to stay away from certain things that are haram. Certain things that are haram. Okay? When you have the ability to do so. And again, I want to refer you back to the advice of Luqman that he gave his son when he told him that in the shirk al-alim, that shirk is a tremendous sin. But right after that, the next piece of advice that he gave him is that Allah is always watching you. And then after that, he followed up with the salah. And we know the status of salah, but why did he tell him that Allah is watching him before telling him about the salah? Because there's going to be situations and times where I'm not going to be around, but you have to be aware, you have to be cognizant of that I might not be there, but Allah Azza wa Jalla is there. SubhanAllah. So again, that is the point of benefit that we got from that one. We have two more benefits, and then we'll end and we'll take questions, inshallah. Another point of benefit that we got from Yusuf in his adolescent years is, and this is extremely important, for those who are following via Zoom, for those who are following via Instagram or Facebook, the next point number 9, is that calamities can befall you based upon what you ask for. calamities can befall an individual based upon what they say. There's an old adage that the older generation, they used to say, be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. Or we would hear our grandparents, at least I heard my grandparents, they would say, you never know when the skies are open, so be careful. Even though these are old sayings that we would hear our grandparents say, a lot of people are not aware that these are actually, this is an actual principle in the religion. In Arabic, it's called abala muwakkilu bimantaq. That calamities can befall an individual based upon what they say. Case in point here, Yusuf alayhi salam, we're jumping ahead just a little bit. But Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was being seduced, or shortly thus after, one of the things that Yusuf alayhi salam that he said was what? Rabbi sijnu ahibbu alayhi. Prison is more beloved to me than what they're calling me to do. So some of the scholars of Islam, some of the scholars have mentioned, they use a narration from Israeliyat. And it's mentioned that Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was in prison for a while, Yusuf alayhi salam, he mentioned, Rabbi amqaytani fi sijn waqt tawila. That, oh Allah, oh my Lord, you have allowed me to remain in prison for a long period of time for something I didn't do. Why? And it's mentioned here that according to this narration, that is mentioned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to Yusuf by saying, you asked for prison. Had you only said, save me, I would have what? I would have done so. So again, this is one narration. And this is from Israel. After some of the scholars mentioned that this narration is weak and shouldn't be used. But there's an authentic narration from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Where one occasion, a particular Sahabi, he was basically walking around and he was extremely, as if he was sick. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was amazed by how sick this man was. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, and I'm sure this man was not the only one who said something like this. And I myself was guilty for saying something like this, and it's a mistake that none of us should say. But the Prophet ﷺ, he asked the man, he said, he asked the man, did you ask Allah to do this to you?
Yeah, everybody on at once, but nobody can meet themselves.
He said, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, did you ask Allah Azza wa Jal to do this to you? I'm going to take questions in the end.
I
think the one tomorrow night is going to be the better one.
So, please, what's going to happen here is that Yusuf alayhi salam, the Prophet said, he asked, did you ask Allah Azza wa Jal to do this to you? The man, he said yes. And again, I'm sure that this man is not the only one who said something like this. He said, I asked Allah if there's any punishment waiting for me in the hereafter, to give it to me now, so I don't have to deal with it in the hereafter. Again, the man, he asked for this. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Subhanallah, innaka tutiq. Subhanallah, you can't bear something like that. Had you only asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you, he would have done so. And it's quite interesting that from the nature of mankind, we constantly put hardships upon ourselves. As the Prophet said, he said, had you only asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save you, he would have done so. To forgive you, he would have done so. Sometimes, I didn't say every time, but sometimes, as scholars of Islam mentioned, calamities can befall this individual based upon what they ask for. Based upon what they ask. So therefore we have to be very careful and do not go to the extremes with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why it's very important for the Muslim to be very balanced in their deen. Alright? And if they did make an extreme statement like this before, or any other statement, then they should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive them for their ignorance, and they will move forward, inshallah, and there won't be any problem, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We want to mention one more point that we get from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, and this point is that many people are in prison for crimes they did not commit. Now, why am I even mentioning that point? sometimes, depending upon what community a person may be a part of, we have a tendency to look down upon those who were tested with prison and say that these people are no good. For example, I am a senior Muslim chaplain. I work in prison. And there are some people who deserve to be in prison. No doubt about it. But there are other people as well who are truly innocent. And also, we should not paint everyone who has been in prison with one paintbrush. Some of the greatest scholars of Islam, the greatest men of Islam, were also tested with prison. Case in point, Yusuf alayhi salam was an inmate. He was a prophet. Shaykh Islam bin Taymiyyah, the same books that you read from, he also was in prison. Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, was also tested with prison. Imam Malik was also tested with prison. Some of the great, Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, was tortured and was also tested with prison. It's not that everyone who goes to prison is an evil individual, and not everyone who comes out of prison is an evil individual. And we should not look down upon our brothers and sisters who have possibly either made a mistake or have possibly been accused of something they really did not do. Now again, I'm not making excuses for everybody, but we need to be aware of this we need to be aware of this, not paint everyone with one paintbrush. Oh, I hope so-and-so when he came out of prison, they're all the same. No, don't make that statement. Rather, that is haram for you to say something like that, and you should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yusuf alayhi salam, he said, subhanallah, I'll mention two points of benefit, 3 points, and then we'll finish. Yusuf alayhi salam, he described prison, and some of the scholars of Islam, he mentioned that Yusuf alayhi salam was in prison for even perhaps 15 to 17 years, wallahu a'lam. Even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions bid'a sinin, is that bid'a in Arabic could be anywhere from 3 to 9. But that was on top of the years Yusuf alayhi salam already spent in prison. SubhanAllah. So therefore, some of the scholars of Islam say it was possibly 15 to 17, wallahu a'lam, how many years in prison. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, he says that when Yusuf alayhi salam came out of prison, he kataba ala babi, he wrote on the wall, or on the door. He wrote 3 things. He described prison to be 3 things. Out of all the years he's been in prison, he said, as-sijn qabru ahya. He said prison is a grave for those who are alive. SubhanAllah. There's no happiness here. There's no enjoyment. You're away from your loved ones, things that you want to do. This is just a grave for those who are alive. People going through the motions. SubhanAllah. And he said, Shamatatul A'da. He said it's also a place where people rejoice at the pain of another person. SubhanAllah. I wish this individual stays in prison for, I wish this. So, SubhanAllah, things that you hear. Prison is a place where people rejoice at the pain of another person. وَتَجْرِبَةُ الْأَصْدِقَاءِ. And it's also a place where friendship is truly tested. SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. So therefore, that is the point of benefit that we get from that as well. Another thing that I want to mention, and I said that there was another point, a couple other points, and I'll suffice with this last point. When we go back to temptations of the opposite sex and fighting our carnal desires, is also, if you are a teacher, if you're an imam of community, if you're a counselor or whatever, even as a parent or someone else's child comes up to you, it shows the importance of covering our faults, or covering our brothers and sisters' faults. If someone shares some vital information with you that they're struggling with this particular thing, it might be from the youth. This child, this young adult is coming to you for advice. It's not for you to show and share this with other people. This is why when you find, this is the sign from the sciences of hadith. Notice that any hadith that you read that exposes the fault of an individual, 95% of the time, a name is not used. But when virtue is mentioned regarding the individual, the name is given. So-and-so did such and such and such and such. He did this. He gave charity. But notice, even going back to the original hadith that I used, that the young boy, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, "O Messenger of Allah, allow me to commit zina." And the Prophet mentioned, "Would you like someone to do with your mother, your uncle, your mother, your sister, your aunt, and so on and so forth?" Again, the boy's name was not used because there's no benefit. And we shouldn't disclose the sins of our brothers and sisters. Rather, we should help and aid one another in trying to get to the ultimate goal. And I want to repeat the same benefit I did in the beginning because it's very important. That the Prophet ﷺ, to get this boy to understand the evilness of what he was doing, or rather what he wanted to do, he put himself in the shoes of the victim. And it also is upon us as Muslims, if we don't understand the plight of some of our community members who are struggling with particular things, political issues or whatever, sometimes for you to truly understand, put yourself in the shoe of the victim. How would you feel if you were in their shoes and you were being this and you were profiled or whatever the case may be? It's upon every last one of us sometime to truly understand, to put yourself in the shoe of the victim, and then you will understand, inshallah. And وَنَخْتَمْ بِهَذَا inshallah ta'ala. We finish with that, and we'll suffice with this. When we talked about Yusuf's adolescence years, it will actually be split up into two parts. So now this next speech class is going to be dealing with the life benefits or the life lessons that we extract from Yusuf's story while he's actually in prison and he was being tested with prison. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save every last one of us from our evil desires, from his tests, and make us successful as well, inshallah. So if there are any questions, we'll take questions, whether it be via Instagram or via Facebook or via Zoom, inshallah. You can unmute your mic, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, sir.
Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. Alright.
So, inshallah, if there's no questions, we'll suffice with that, inshallah. If it was pretty clear, please let me know it was clear, inshallah. طيب. خلاص, if there's no questions, inshallah, we'll suffice with that. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام. جزاك الله خير.